Hi folks, it's Richard from Inclusive Driving. This was a part 2 test, so a test for a person who wants to become a driving instructor. We did a reverse park on the car park and we've just set up following SatNav. We're not allowed to record the audio during the test, but I'm going to recreate what was said by the examiner. So as we left the car park, in contrast to a learner test, the examiner did not remind the candidate that they were emerging onto a national speed limit road. They've just got to figure that out for themselves from the fact there's no street lighting and it's not a built up area. This was a test by a driver called Sam. We're getting up to a decent speed here. Good use of limit points. We're approaching a 30 sign that Sam's seen, so he slows down very appropriately, well in advance, just using accelerator sense, not needing to use the brakes very much at all. I did encourage Sam to use the speed limiter function on the car, and we're going into a right turn. We've got a warning sign on the left to tell us that it's a traffic calmed area. SatNav then asks us to take the second road on the left. This is a very appropriate speed for a traffic calmed area. The speed limit is 30, but Sam is using good judgment here with pedestrians around. It is a school holiday, so maybe we could go up to 30, but the speed bumps are quite severe. So 20 is a very appropriate speed. Now, because you can't see in the car and I'm not allowed to film inside the car, you won't see things like mirror checks, but throughout the test, mirror checks were all very appropriate. At the end of this road, we are going to be turning left. We get a nice, fairly open view to the right, a little close to the left. And again, Sam's approach speed to the junction is really good. At the start of a part 2 test, the examiner does advise that they are looking for a higher standard of driving compared to a learner test. And no unnecessary stopping there. And once again, at the end of the road, we're turning left. Now, there seems to be a speed limit sign missing here from what I remember. The road we're turning onto is 40, but there's actually nothing to tell us that straight away. Now, there's a reminder sign on the left, so Sam now does get his speed up above 30 towards the 40 limit. At speeds around 40 and 50, the GPS speed read by the dash cam is about 3 miles an hour less than what the car is reading out. So while it says 36 at the bottom of the screen, Sammy's doing 39.40. Now, to break the silence, there was some casual conversation going on between the examiner and Sam. I was actually sitting in the back of this test. I sit in on a lot of learner tests. This was the first time I'd sat in on a part 2 test, so this is really good for my experience and my professional development. It also helps me keep my driving standard very high by comparing what I would mark as a fault to what the examiner marks as a fault at the end of the test. At the end of this road, we are turning left. Satnav advises to take the second road on the right. The examiner just clarifies it by saying it is the direction of Stafford. Brilliant handling of the pedestrian there. This is an area that, as instructors, we call it first gear bridge. Coming the other way, it's a bit narrow, first gear to climb up that hill. We're in an automatic today anyway, so that's irrelevant. Satnav now says cross the roundabout second exit. The examiner does clarify that it is in fact right second exit on the roundabout, and then ahead at the second roundabout. So what would the examiner be looking for? They're obviously looking for you to proceed onto the roundabout at a safe opportunity, but they're also looking to see if you use good observation in the left mirror before you spiral from the right lane to the left lane. And it's ahead second exit on this roundabout. And Sam starts to build his speed up straight away, which is good. Nothing has told us that it's changed from the previous 60 mile an hour sign until we get to this reminder. Now, Satnav does say at some point along here, in half a mile, turn right. I can't remember exactly how far along this road we were when Satnav said that. Sam moved over to the right lane early. He was a little worried at the end of the test that he'd maybe done it too early, but the examiner reassured him no, it was a perfectly appropriate lane change. He was doing a good speed. Nobody undertook him. We could argue that he was making good progress past traffic in the left lane anyway. You can see there's a white vehicle in lane 1. The examiner just reminded Sam that it wasn't a right turn at these traffic lights. That's a good speed approaching the traffic light that's been green for a long time. And the right turn is at the next traffic light. Again, no fault for being in the right-hand lane, in the overtaking lane, because we did have a purpose to be there. We were keeping up with the blue car in front and we needed that lane for the right turn anyway. As we go into a new road, always check to see if there's a change of speed limit. Now, this is a road that I don't bring learners down very often, and I think perhaps I should. There's a lot of features on this road that would give a good experience to somebody who's learning to drive for the first time. The speed limit does change. Now, as I was sitting in the back of this test, I am making a mental note of any faults that I would be giving Sam. A little bit further along this road, I feel Sam did get too close to the blue car. The examiner didn't mark it as a fault at that point. There was a fault for following distance, but that occurred later on during the test. It might be a little bit difficult to see with the perspective of the dash cam. Now we're into that 50-mile-an-hour zone. We do sneak a little bit closer than the 2-second separation gap that we should normally be using. Now we've gone past a national speed limit sign. We're unlikely to be able to get up to 60 miles an hour because the lorry in front of us will be restricted to 50 as it's a single carriageway national speed limit. And this is where I feel we may be getting too close to the car in front. We are a little bit less than 2 seconds. And at the end of the road, SatNav asks us to turn right. So we've got a choice of 2 lanes, one marked left, one marked right. And no drama with the braking there. We'd got that separation distance back again. So slowing down was an easy and smooth process there. So there's no criticism for not getting up to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit here. Again, the traffic in front is preventing us from doing that. Traffic in front's doing 40 at the moment. There's no point in trying to overtake, and there's too much traffic coming towards us in any case. Now, I'm not really sure what the hold up is here. It's probably just traffic crawling up towards a roundabout. Maybe somebody's turning right, holding us up. It's very difficult to see from the back seat, which is where I was sitting. Can't figure out. Oh, yeah, there was a red car just turning right there. Was that the hold up, I wonder? We're not really getting much more speed up now, are we? Again, I don't come along this road very often. I know there's a roundabout coming up. I can't remember exactly where. At some point, SatNav does tell us that we are going left first exit and then taking the second right. It gives those two instructions together. So it looks like we are approaching the roundabout now. So SatNav has told us we're taking left first exit and then the second left. We can see the sign on the left is telling us that if we wanted to go ahead, we would need the right-hand lane. So quite appropriately, Sam now passes all this traffic on the left. We're not undertaking because we've got one lane for one direction, another lane for another direction, and arguably we are in queuing traffic as well. So undertaking isn't an issue there. At this point, the examiner reminds Sam that we're taking the second road on the left. Interestingly, at the end of the test, he did say there was a not worthy fault here, so something that didn't get recorded, but he did comment maybe we missed a couple of opportunities to proceed onto the roundabout here. In the examiner's words, he said something like, well, I would have gone. So the centre line has disappeared. That's warning us that this is potentially a narrow road. Caution needed if we've got two-way traffic. And SatNav asks us to turn right at some point. The usual guideline on any driving test is if there's no instruction, follow the road ahead. And somewhere along this stretch of road, sat-nav finished, and the examiner then said, that's the end of the independent driving, and I'll be giving you directions from this point. This is just one of the many times you'll be asked to pull up on the left. It will happen normally 4 times. You won't see it because we can't film in the car, but mirror checks and blind spot over the right shoulder was entirely correct and appropriate there. So no instruction given, so follow the road ahead. And this was a right turn. By this point, I'm completely lost. I have no idea where we are at the moment. I seem to remember this was a left turn. The examiner will be looking for good positioning here. It's a sweeping left turn, so it's very easy to end up too far to the right. Brilliant holdback position there, not adding to any problems. Now the examiner asked Sam to pull up on the left between the yellow and the grey car, and not to worry about being opposite the junction or blocking driveways on this occasion. This is what we call the angle start, commonly known as moving off from behind a parked car. I think the next instruction was a left turn, and it was a stop junction rather than a give way junction. Secretly, I was keeping my fingers crossed at this point because on Sam's previous training sessions, we had to have a discussion about what do you need to do at a stop junction. There was the advanced warning triangle saying stop, and here's the 8-sided sign. Brilliantly handled. We stopped, but there was no faffing about with the handbrake, no counting to 3, no doing a silly dance. It was stop, look, get on with it. Brilliantly done. And I would say that was expert use of speed as well. Slowing just enough to let the oncoming car get past, and then for Sam to complete the right turn. Absolutely brilliant. I think it was second road on the right was the next instruction. Again, no centre line, so it's warning you that this could be a difficult road for two-way traffic. Very appropriate use of speed around that bend. Very good positioning there for the straight on at the staggered junction. Now here the examiner was very specific about where he wanted Sam to pull up. He said pull up by the second lamppost. I think he actually meant telegraph pole. And this was on a gradient. Doesn't look hilly from the dash cam, but this was on a hill, so a hill start. And this looks like another stop junction. The instruction was to turn right. Now we did have somebody approaching from the left hand side wanting to turn in. They slowed down and gave way to Sam by holding back. The car that's out of view to the right also stops to help Sam emerge. And Sam gives a couple of thank yous. Quite appropriate there. Never be scared to be polite by saying thank you with your hand on a driving test. Now this was a little bit of a surprising difference between a part 2 and a learner test. On a learner test, to my knowledge, the examiner will never try and catch you out deliberately by saying pull over on the left when we've got double yellow lines. But that's exactly what happened here. The examiner said pull over on the left in a safe place. Now a little bit further ahead, the double yellow line turns to a single yellow line. Not sure of the time restrictions, but what I would have done here is stopped next to a lamppost in the single yellow line section, just so that I could have a look at the time on the sign to see if I was allowed to stop there or not. If I wasn't, I'd move on. Sam did get a driving fault for stopping on the double yellow lines. In the debrief at the end of the test, the examiner did say, we were hoping you would look ahead and plan ahead. That's fair. I think there's good visibility ahead. We can see places where the yellow lines were not there and we could have parked quite legally. Just going by memory now, I think this was a mini roundabout with the instruction of left second exit. Maybe the examiner is leading you into a trap there to see if you signal left On approach, that would of course be misleading because we're taking the second exit. The examiner also gave Sam a little bit of further information now, and he said something like, to help with your planning, I'm going to give you an instruction for the next 2 roundabouts. We're going to go right third exit and then right second exit. So what we should be thinking here is, what am I doing at the second roundabout? I'm turning right. So which lane am I probably going to need for that roundabout? And then think, what can I do on the first roundabout to help me approach the second roundabout? So I would be planning to exit the first roundabout into the overtaking lane, because that then sets me up nicely for the right turn at the second roundabout. You'll notice here Sam exits the first roundabout into the left lane and then very quickly does a lane change to the right. It's not an issue, it was all safe. It was just maybe a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. Sam also got a driving fault for observation on this roundabout. He clearly checks to the right, doesn't check so much to the left to see that traffic is becoming congested, and we actually join the roundabout and sort of contribute to a bit of a traffic jam. So driving fault was given there. So look to the left, you can see there's a bit of congestion here. The car that's just coming roundabout adds to that congestion. We are now a little bit stuck, but we have progressed onto the roundabout. So driving fault for observation at junctions. Now here Sam exits to the left lane with mirror checks, no big deal. And then he thinks about the second roundabout and does the lane change. We could have just gone into the overtaking lane straight away. Now again, the examiner gives us 2 pieces of information. He says we're turning right, second exit, and then following the road ahead towards Wolverhampton. Whenever you have 2 instructions given to you, there's a reason for it. So we want to be extra vigilant for road signs and road markings to tell us how to go ahead towards Wolverhampton. By the way, that grey car was really tiny. It looked like a toy car. It's an electric car. No idea what make and model that is. Never seen one before. If you know what it is, please let me know. Nice progress there, edging forwards just before the van had cleared the path. So accelerating into the gap instead of waiting for the gap and then moving. This is where we see the sign for straight on for Wolverhampton. I was very relieved at this point because Sam recognised the box junction and stopped before it. From the back seat I couldn't see everything, so I was a little worried when he started to move before the car in front had completely cleared. Obviously he can see more from the front seat than I can see from the back seat, and I'm looking kind of in hindsight at the dash cam now. But that works okay. So I am back on familiar ground now. It was the housing estate that I'd never been round before. And there's brilliant forward planning here, leaving the junction open. When you have a situation like this, look at the car behind to see if they are indicating that they want to turn into that road on the left. If they are, we can maybe edge forwards a little bit more to let them on their way. Now there's a roundabout coming up, and the instruction given by the examiner was to follow the road ahead, second exit. On approach, Sam chooses the right-hand lane. That's not an issue. There's nothing on approach to tell you that you can't use the right-hand lane. It's not marked with a right turn arrow only or a road number that's not appropriate for us. So that wasn't an issue. And as we left the roundabout down the second exit, there was some excellent use of the left mirror to check it was safe to move back over to the left. No issues there. However, there was a driving fault given because Sam indicated right on approach to this roundabout where we're going straight on. Now, if we're positioned in the right-hand lane with a right signal, we've now got our position and signal matching each other, and that's sending a very strong message to other cars that you are going around the roundabout. And a very valid point raised by the examiner at the end in the debrief was that your right signal is almost encouraging people in the left lane to undertake you. So it's potentially compounding the problem of you being able to leave the roundabout. So the driving fault was for signalling, not for lane choice. You see here, it was just a little more difficult leaving there. It would have been better to use the left lane for going ahead, unless arrows specifically tell you. There's another roundabout coming up, and Sam does exactly the same thing. The instruction is ahead onto the A460, I think it is. Don't quote me on that until we see the road numbers. And the examiner said it was third exit. And he did emphasise the word ahead twice. He said again, we're going ahead, third exit. Once again, Sam approaches in the right lane. Once again, that's not the end of the world. It's not a big issue. But he did put a right signal on again. So we had 2 driving faults for signalling correctly over the whole test. The lane choice wasn't wrong because the lane that Sam chooses does have a straight arrow in it. But the road we're going on to is only a 1-lane road. So it's just a little more awkward to leave the roundabout from the right-hand lane. Mirror checks again were perfectly appropriate. Nothing dangerous happened. So it's not a fault for lane choice, but it was a fault for signalling correctly. Or in this case, signalling unnecessarily. Now we're about 2/3 of the way through the part 2 test now. It lasts approximately 1 hour. This one lasted a little bit longer because we did get caught up in more traffic. At the next roundabout, the instruction was to follow the road ahead, second exit. No problems with signals or lane choice on this occasion. Sam's also spotted that the speed limit has increased to 40. Then the next instruction given is to turn right, third exit, A460. I think if it was me, I probably would have done the lane change now while I've got that opportunity. Nothing behind me. It's not excessively late, is it? And this is where we start to get caught up in more and more traffic. When there's a little bit of delay getting to the junction, the examiner will often just remind you which direction you're going. Again, there was some casual conversation going on between Sam and the examiner. Very easy to forget which direction you've been asked to go, so the examiner will remind you, turning right, third exit, A460. And that little brush on the microphone was my cat. Come out the way, Domino. The cat who wants to be a YouTube star. Throughout the test, there were 2 show me questions. I'm trying to recall what they were. First one was to switch on the dipped headlights. And the second one was towards the end of the test, wash and clear the back window using the washers and wipers. The 3 tell me questions. One was about anti-lock braking system. Sam was asked to open the bonnet, so there was a question under there, although by that time I'd got into the back of the car, so I don't know exactly which question it was. And another question was presumably asked outside the car, which I didn't hear. So here's the sign to tell you Wolverhampton A460 is right, third exit. We're in the appropriate lane. This roundabout can be a little bit tricky because traffic often comes out of the first exit into the left lane. They look at your position in the right lane and they think they can sneak on. Just as you go past the second exit, which is the motorway, you've then got to try and move over to the left lane while traffic is sneaking on next to you. So really good mirror use is important at that point. So you can see exit 1 on the left, and then you can see there's a white van on the left and a red car and a silver car. Those cars often sneak out before you've got past them and make it difficult for you to move back over to the left. Really good mirror use there though. Now, to let you into a little secret, at this point the examiner relaxed a little bit, sort of shuffled forwards a little bit in the seat, and I could have a sneaky peek at the iPad. I could see by this point that we'd got 6 driving faults. That's the limit you're allowed for a part 2. So again, I've got my fingers crossed now, hoping that nothing else untoward happened on the way back. I'm visualizing the route now, thinking about how much time we've got left. So I can be pretty certain what route the examiner is going to take now to get back to the test centre. And I'm reassured that there's nothing really tricky going on there. So by this point, I am thinking we've probably got a pass. Watch out as you leave at this junction. Traffic in the right lane often tries to jump the queue or suddenly realise they're in the right lane. Brilliant move by Sam just to hold back for the silver car there. This section of road is 50 miles an hour, then going down to 40. The volume of traffic in front doesn't let us do that. But if you've got a clear run, put your foot down at that point. I think at this point there's probably not much point in continuing with the whole video. We've discussed the driving faults that occurred. They've all happened by this point. I think now I'll just speed up the video so you can see the rest of the route. The second reversing manoeuvre was a forwards bay park. So we had a reverse bay park at the start of the test. We had a forwards bay park at the end of it. I'm not supposed to be filming on the car park at the test centre, so we'll chop that bit out. So I'm going to say bye for now. I hope this video has been useful to you in terms of discussing the potential problems here. Please don't try to memorize the route. That really isn't important. What is important is the thought processes of driving and analysing the things that have gone wrong. So I'll leave you with a fast forward view from now. And that's all for now. And we'll see you on another video very soon.